Move on and talk about this a little bit. I tweeted this earlier in the week, but did you know that Gus Malzahn is the only coach to beat Nick Saban 4 times while Saban was at Alabama? 3 times as a head coach, which again, the only one to do that too. And then once as an offensive coordinator in 2010 when they had none other than Cam Newton, former Gator legend. Only coach to beat him 4 times. So just hearing that alone and knowing that we open up with Bama next year, a Bama team that is still very good, but a Bama team that is certainly susceptible to losing to bad teams now without Nick Saban. Don't let Lindsey hear this. Does that get you a little more excited for Gus Malzahn?
Yeah, and they went to Nashville and lost to Vanderbilt, and not to take any credit away from Vanderbilt, they were actually a pretty solid team this year. They would have beat the brakes off Florida State as well. But yeah, it's wild when you hear that because Nick Saban it's not like he beat 2007 Nick Saban, which was what Bobby and Jimbo did, right? In Saban's first year when Louisiana Monroe beat them as well. No, these were all in Saban's heyday, and I would say all 4 times. Well, not outside of the Cam Newton year when he was a coordinator, as you mentioned. The other 3 times, Alabama was the better team all season long, but Gus just found a way to scheme things open and just get it done. And the offense of Auburn was a big reason why they won those games. It wasn't just dominant defense by Auburn; it was the offense going out and making plays with guys, no matter who it may be. I mean, obviously the kick stick was one of them, one of the greatest plays in college football history. But I think that bringing in Gus Malzahn, I think was a huge move, and I think the reason I love it the most is because he did Norvell did something that Jimbo refused to do, which he said he would do. People might forget Jimbo said, "Oh, I got a 5-year plan to give up play calling." Well, no, Norvell actually saw the season and said, "Listen, whatever happened this year, I don't know, but it can never happen again. I need to have more oversight over the big picture, be more of a CEO." And he brought in someone who he knows very, very well and trusts, and has made it clear he's giving up play calling to a very experienced and successful college football offensive coordinator or an offensive mind in Gus Malzahn. For those reasons, I love that hire.
I'll get right back to chatting with Richie, but first, if you're watching this and you appreciate our content or you're appreciating the videos that we put out or the lives that we do, consider supporting us over on Patreon. We have different levels from $3 to $10 a month, whatever you're looking for that may fit within your budget. We also, with that, give you access to our Discord that has 3,000 rowdy FSU fans talking about the Noles at any given point. If you're looking for a little bit different insight on the program, or if you just want to support and give back, check out patreon.com/DFNS. There's a free trial running right now that you're more than welcome to go check out. In the spirit of the holidays, go check out our free trial. Again, patreon.com/DFNS. Here's the other thing I like about it a ton is because of the system and the wrinkles that he does run, I don't think Florida State has the time to rebuild kind of a pro style attack or a brand new attack. Obviously, people were in love with the UNLV offensive coordinator, which I think, what did they go out and score like 10 points in their conference championship or something? But anyway, people were in love with this guy or in love with that guy. And I don't think Norvell, and you can love the Malzahn thing, you can hate the Malzahn thing, right? Like the Bama part of it is kind of a fun, quirky like side of it, but I certainly like play it up more, but it's not nothing. Like knowing how to beat Alabama and having a consistent a history of doing that when no one else has is certainly not nothing. But I do think that the idea of like changing the entire offense to go to the go-go or to bring in the Tulane guy or to bring in this guy or that, like whatever your thought was on what Florida State should have done with the offense, changing it completely. And though that's what, certain former players will have you think that Florida State is doing here, I just don't know how realistic that was. Like, I don't know how realistic it was for Florida State to absolutely change everything and have success next year, right? Like really hit the ground running and win games. And so the more I think about it, the more I kind of attack it from that angle. I think the Gus hire makes a lot of sense. There are things that Gus is, I would say, no longer like elite at, right? Like his offense at times, talking with UCF folks, maybe somewhat predictable. But I do think the focus is on the right things and throwing the ball a ton. I'm sorry, running the ball a ton and taking, pretty good deep shots down the field. Now, can Florida State do that successfully? I mean, obviously the proof is in the pudding, right? Like you've got to come out and perform well and execute well when the lights come on Saturdays. And obviously they haven't done that very well in any of 2024 outside of that opening drive against Georgia Tech, which will certainly just live in infamy in our minds. But I think that keeping things similar, people forget like what all the Gus tree has birthed, right? It's not just Norvell's offense, who certainly didn't just forget how to coach offense. It's not just what Gus has done in the past. It's not, I mean, Rhett Lashley came from that. There's a lot of good that's really come from that offense. And I think that gives you hope. Just the idea of like, you don't have to change everything. You may just be able to tweak a few things and kind of get back on the right path. Obviously, just having a competent quarterback and a competent offensive line is going to change a ton. And so people freak out or obviously everything is so extreme, right? One side or the other. I don't think the Malzahn thing moves the needle a ton way up or way down. I think that if you get decent offensive line play and decent quarterback play, you easily make a bowl and maybe you find your way to 7 or 8 wins. Maybe you find your way to 9. The 9 feels like the absolute ceiling. But to me, it's not as life or death. It's just, hey, can we tweak a few things? Can we take a little bit off of Mike's plate so that he can focus on other things within the program? And from there, how much success can we find?
Yeah, and it's going back to your point earlier, TJ, in the show where you talked about Mike needs to win next year, right? So if he weren't in that situation, if his job were safe, no matter what happens next year, maybe he does bring in a different coordinator and install a brand new offense, understanding that it's going to take maybe 6 games into next year, and then it really won't be till game 1 of the following year till they really hit the ground running. But no, he's bringing in a very similar offense, very similar terminology when it comes to calling plays. So to make it as easy as possible on whatever offensive players we do have left, the ones we want to keep, hopefully we can keep them. And I think that's a big part of it as well. He just wanted the smoothest transition possible offensively, knowing he had made the decision to give up play calling. I don't think he was forced to give up play calling, but I think he was told, listen, if you keep calling plays and this offense looks like this again next year, that's on you. So I think he just wanted to do something that was comfortable and familiar. So it's kind of the safe bet. Um, could he have brought in, like Miami did it back in 2020 or 2021, whichever year it was, when they brought in Rhett Lashley to completely revamp the offense, and it was a wild success. But then they lost him in a year. Now, that's not to say Gus Malzahn might not leave after 1 year, but again, I think Mike Norvell, all he's looking for is a bridge this year. And that's probably where this hire came from. So again, I don't think it's a huge home run hire by any means, but I do think it's a fairly safe one. UCF's record was not good this year. People can say that he might have been fired if he didn't resign and come to Tallahassee, but they still ran the ball fairly well. And that's what Mike wants to do. He wants to run the ball and then push it downfield. And I think with Castellanos, that adds an extra dimension to the offense to where now you have essentially an extra blocker when you have such a mobile quarterback like him. I think it was a well calculated decision by Norvell in a year knowing that he cannot have a 4-8 season next year or he's likely gone. He will never admit this. He's going to say the goal is 12-0, get to the playoff, yada yada yada. But he knows he needs to get to 6 wins next year because anything less may cost him his job.
Richie, I don't think that people will lie very much this offseason, right?
No.
I mean, we'll see, right? Like, I feel like this fan base is just a little smarter than like the Miami fan base or the UF fan base that just, lies their tails off, at all times. Like, if you had to project it right now, kind of my best case scenario is probably like 8-4 if we were doing our season preview. Now, I guess we'll see how the rest of the portal goes. We'll see how the spring window goes. Like, there certainly could be things that come up and impact that in a different way. We'll see what Miami and Florida do because those are 2 of your tougher games for sure, along with Clemson and Bama. But I don't think people will lie very much this offseason. I think they'll be pretty realistic when we get on here in August and predict our wins and losses. I would imagine you and I, who lean a little more optimistic, will probably be around the 7-5 or 8-4 range, right? Probably give us a win more than Vegas, which I would imagine Vegas is
Easier
going to have
non
us
schedule helps.
easier non-conference
Two
and
auto wins, so
easier. I think it's easier in conference too. Like this
yeah,
year, what did we play 10 bowl teams
I believe.
along with 3 playoff teams?
Yeah,
And we didn't have a quarterback or an offensive line.
yeah.
Like, the schedule was incredibly difficult. You opened up with Georgia Tech, who took Georgia to 8 overtimes, a fully healthy Georgia Tech. Like you played 3 playoff teams, and then you
With
played a
the
team
South
that
Bend.
finished number 12 overall in Miami. Like, if not for auto bids, you played 4 playoff teams, And so, yeah, I think it's really tough to think like, this team played a very difficult schedule. Next year, I think you play 4 of the bottom 7 ACC teams, which obviously Florida State was in there too, but Stanford really bad. NC State wasn't very good. Sorry, Hunter. I think you play Virginia and Virginia Tech, 2 really, like Brent Pry's on the hot seat. Virginia wasn't very good. And so you replaced like SMU and all that. And yeah, you play Alabama, but you played Notre Dame on the, Alabama at home. I understand that Alabama's logo is what it is on the side of their helmet, but I'm just telling you, Alabama at home is an easier game than Notre Dame on the road. Like it just is. There's no doubt about it. This is not Nick Saban's Alabama, right? They're still going to win 9-10 games next year, no doubt. But they're not as good as Notre Dame. And certainly playing at home is an advantage. So anyway, I don't think there'll be a lot of lying going on. But if Florida State was able to find a way to win that first game, which I'm not projecting, right? Like I'm not predicting that. If they beat Alabama, the lying will start. And it will start pretty hot and heavy at that point. Like, so
There will be egregious lies.
yeah, if Norvell wants us to lie for him again, just beat Bama. Like it's just really simple. Like just beat Alabama to start, and we'll lie our tails off. So